We're good to go.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, apparently we're good to go. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to Design Advisory Panel for the 22nd of April, 2021. My name is Charles Kerolf. I'm the chair of the panel, and I will guide you through the meeting this evening, starting with the announcement or whatever that just so you know, we are on Zoom, as you can tell, and we are also being live streamed, so it's recorded and live streamed, just so everybody knows that. We have an agenda for this evening. Well, first of all, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And first item on our agenda is to approve the agenda. So unless there are any additions or changes to the agenda, I would call for approval of tonight's agenda. All those in favor? Excellent. Item 3, I guess, on the agenda is the minutes from the last meeting from April, I think it was the 8th. Does anybody have any comments or questions, revisions, anything to do with the minutes from the last meeting? Seeing none, I'd like to call for adoption of the minutes from the last meeting. All those in favor? Excellent. Those minutes are adopted. Following that, we have tonight's presentation, and to be introduced, actually I don't even know who's introducing it. Lisa?
Yes.
Lisa will be introducing tonight's presentation.
Hello, everyone. For this evening, we have a development permit application for the property at 4961 Songbird Place. This is a 1.25 hectare parcel and contains a wetland. The applicant is proposing an L-shaped 5-story building with 108 residential units. The property is zone corridor 1, residential corridor, and falls within development permit area 9 for multifamily development. The general development permit area design guidelines apply. The variances are proposed, 3, to increase the allowable building height, to reduce the front yard setback, and to reduce the allowable percentage of small car spaces. That's my brief introduction.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's now time for the applicant to do their presentation, and I suspect that's going to be Dariush, but I'm not sure. So if it is, do you have a screen share?
Hello, that's correct. My name is Dariush. We are taking project. First, I would like to introduce Chris Lockley, which is the project's developer manager for the project. Chris, do you want to have any opening, or should I jump in and do the presentation?
I'll leave it to you, Dariush.
Thank you. We also have Victoria Director as a landscape architect of the project, and also Scott Jensen from Harold Engineer as a civil engineer. This project is a residential building, which is in the Rutherford area. The access from Songbird Place. As Lisa mentioned, it's corridor 1, 4-story building, plus underground parking. I have some wrong information here. 108 units, 60% they are 1 bedroom and 40% they are 2 or 3 bedrooms. Here we have zoning the area, as you see, some corridors are around here, 53 and some residential. The blue area shows the property as a regular side area, access from Songbird Place, and this property line goes through the wetland or pond. This is a little bit bigger area, and One thing, basically, we are doing part of the rezoning of this. We are creating bike lane in here, and also upgrading some access in upland and some bird at that area. That is part of the community contribution to the project. Some more pictures, as you see the tree areas in the setback area, and also another project which is done a couple of years ago, across the pond, 3-story project. That's some picture view from the other post. One from the upper. This is the important part. Our building going to be higher than this building, but as you see, because of the slope in the Rutherford, you will see the roof line. So just later on, we'll come back to this, why the roof line is important in this project. Grand Hotel across the street. Senior housing, senior care facility built a couple of years ago across the street. Some commercial, McDonald's, and obviously the mall across that access. Here's old Sears Road. And this is that access road. We're gonna add some bike lane to part of the competition. This is the view from the corner, as you see a couple of streets there. And that's the building built across the pond. There's a picture belongs to right after the project finished. It's, I believe, like 6 years ago. And this is our project in the corner. I'm not showing in these rendering any trees. There will be trees around the Rutherford and some trees, lots of trees close to the pond. To see the building, I have to delete those ones, but those will be covering almost half of the height of the building. Some interior views. So that's the site plan. These are the trees basically shown in here, all in the setback area of also some trees in here close to area, which we're trying to keep. We're not getting too fast. Okay. This is basically like more color drawing to show them. Basically, that's the highest point is for the pond, and this blue, the hatchet area of the setback. We are outside of the 15-meter setback. Yellow line is all the pedestrian connections around the building and rather. Underground parking, which access from the north-west corner. Typical floor plan. This is main floor, which is our main entrance from the right in the middle. Which you have also access to ladders from the back and this area in main floor, which is right at the grade elevation at the back there. Last drawing is end of the building in the southeast corner. We do have a fitness room where this parking, the only area the car parking will be exposed to the outside. That's the standard, typical floor plan because the building is too big for, as Kota Road, we have a fire-rated wall. Some elevation with the material, which I want back to be, again, all cementation, code obviously doesn't show the real colors, but just a couple of elevations you can see. let's go to the actual building. As Lisa mentioned, it is L-shaped building, very similar to what we had in the other trusted compounds, using mimicking similar type of the roof line there. We are not getting even the full density of the property. Property has one ratio, 1 FFR. We are getting 0.7. It's almost 70% of what we can provide. We can build. More rendering. These are the material, color, and things we proposing. These materials showing them more wood green, but the majority is going to be smooth finish using this ocean blue from Color Plus, using the night gray, also white we call Arctic white. And as the accent, using also cedar tone wood siding. Those wood siding is majority going to use. This is the south east end, which we have a thickness from the lower portion. Let's show here. You see this part of that thickness room will be here. The panel itself, when we have a deck, we don't want to use the panel as they are not, don't feel they're really friendly, but those wood tone is all used in the deck to give a little bit warmer feeling. And basically where the people they can touch the siding. This is the back in the Rutherford amenity area. We do have some recommendations from staff and we'll back to there, but again there is a bunch of trees in here, very old trees, which we will be providing some shading and privacy to the side of the building. Okay, let's go to variance. There is 2 variants for the asking tonight. One is very minor, small car percentage is around 40%. We are 41%. It's 1%. Setback. I'm going to back to the site plan. Here is as you see, the building is square, but the road is turning. So we are in this meeting all the setbacks, entire area, except in that small corner where the building is turning. We are asking for 1.5 meters. 1.05 meter variance. We didn't want to go too much to lose the much spacing. Sorry. Sorry, I lost it. Yeah, here 105 back. And building height. Building height, because we're providing more than 75% underground parking, 14 meters added, an additional bonus 4 meters. Our building is 18.39. So basically we are asking just a little bit more than foot for building height. Staff recommendation. Here there's a couple of recommendations on stone base for main where we have an arcade outside. I don't think that is actually proper, because when you're doing that, you are separating buildings from main building from the rest, and not allowing to properly see. We can use the colors, the darker colors, and make the building stay stronger. Stone veneer at the base, I don't think so that it's done, but the project sometimes works, but I do not feel here is what we should do. Next one was in stronger entry. Because of L-shape and the V in the corner, the entrance is not really camouflage. Is what we can do with changing the brighter color there. We can make it more outstanding. Roof line, simplify. I'm not agree with this one, as I showed the view from Rutherford. When you're coming down, you're going to see the roof. And that's why we wanted to see those articulations. You're going to hide all the mechanical, the shaft with anything coming off. They will be roof screening these. The roof lines will be screening without mechanical unit, but we will have the additional screening if required. Circular courtyard. The suggestion was to be more straight and drop-off area. I did draw actually the options, and we did talk in the details with Victoria. We think that is not worked well with this. We don't want cars to stay in that circle area. We want them to leave as soon as they drop and to pick up and not do the mess. But pavers will be a great idea. We can do the entire area as a paver, and actually can be some amenity outdoor to use. We do have a continuous walkway around the buildings and Rutherford connected to the mall and the Sunbird place. Garbage being to move underground. I think that's today actually, because you make it easy to people to take it from the elevator all the way down to the parking and use that. I think that's a really great option. It reduces the pickup options for private sector, but it is common. Increase amenity area. I believe this for Victoria. She has a thing about this. And exterior lighting. Yes, we will engaging with the electrical engineer to provide the electrical. Victoria in landscape is one which shows some lights, but more details with the electrical engineer. I am going to pass this to Victoria unless you have a question for me.
No, I think you can continue with the presentation and then we'll ask questions.
Victoria, go ahead and ask me if you want to change the slide. Victoria, you may be unmute. Cannot hear you. I think you are mute.
Oh,
there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry. Can you go to the next one?
Yes.
So I divided mine into two parts because I wanted it to be at a larger scale. So the first page is the north end where you enter off Sunbird Place. So in terms of the plan, that's not very informative, but for the design rationale, it was really based, my whole design is based on the wetland, and that's the little pond, and it takes up pretty much half the site. And this site is, the other site had a lot of invasives and had to go in there and take all the black bees out. This one had a lot of encampments, so that brings its own problems. But oddly enough, a lot of the trees and some of the understory has remained intact. So once the sort of structure is there, and once the garbage has been removed, and it may have, and Chris may have removed it already, I know he was going to, but anyway, there's enough structure there to work with. So I think the wetland can really be restored nicely on this side. And there's a lot of willow and the whole bird thing just gets me. I mean, the fact that it's called Songbird Place is really nice. And, you know, for anyone who's a birdie person knows that plants like willows attract a phenomenal amount of birds. And this is so perfect because we have water, everything needed to create this habitat. So my whole approach to this bit of to what we're doing here is to do a layered approach, diverse plantings, and we can keep some of the mature trees, and then we have water. So we have all the ingredients for a really nice little tiny patch of restoration that will just make this project, just settle it right in. And so that, it's really quite decorative, all the little birds, but I just couldn't resist. And then also benches, bike racks, and there's a tiny little bollard in there that we've used at Pacific Station, but it's a nice, elegant little bollard that we've used for pedestrian areas in the past. So, okay, next slide. So the next bit tacks on to the bit south of that little entrance area. Can you get the next one, Dariush? And there is a berm that runs along the northeast, sort of northwest, I guess. Sorry, getting my directions wrong. And there is a stand of arbutus that's to the left, which is nice. But I was going to add some Gary oaks along the edge as you come through, and then we'll do the wetland restoration. But as you come in, there are also this existing arbutus on that whole west property line. Not all of it, in some of it. So we're retaining that area too. And then there's all this sort of skinny strips around the edge, which again I'm going to try and plant with. This is where the 30% of exotic species come, because as you know, our native trees need loads of space, so putting in skinny conifers and, fastigious columnar trees, both deciduous, and so they will get tall, and so that the all along Rutherford, what the top floors will get is this nice sort of filtered view through leaves, and it'll kind of ameliorate the traffic going up and down Rutherford. And then sorry, I'm probably jumping all over the place, but let's come in the driveway. So the turnaround that Dariush already mentioned, we did look at rejigging that, but I think it's a nice way to come into the site, drop off, and then go to parking. And that's all on the parking, the podium there. So the planting there has to be low because there's hardly any soil, but there's enough to just make it soft and green, and then it's carved out a little sitting space with that place for bike rack. And then we put a little path in front of the unit, and then we'll have planters. The planters will be about 2 foot high, so anything we place, that's dark green, and so they'll provide a little bit of privacy, but the balconies, those bottom units will also be sociable places, and people can go across there to the mall. There's access to the mall at the end of the parking. That existing driveway to the mall curves around really close to that point. And there's actually an existing path through there now where the berm sort of break and you can go through. The grade works. And then we have allowed a path. Sometimes the path is going to have be painted or something lined or whatever on the asphalt, and where we have room, we'll go into the actual, actually a sidewalk, and otherwise it'll just trace around through the parking lot, and then down through a rain garden, which Scott can talk about in later. But I chose we chose to make that quite vegetated, that area, because we're losing some conifers in that that's presently sitting there, and I think it's nice to have those landmarks. And it's not a kind of plaza-y type entrance. It's more the main entrance is uphill a bit. So I think that just keeps the character. Will keep the character of that corner and be functional with the bioswale there. And then as you cross the road, you go to the memory care, and then there's a trail that carries on to Long Lake through there and across Rutherford. So that's a really nice existing amenity. And then of course you got the lovely shopping mall, that's a nice amenity. So in terms of the amenity space, the staff comments, we have these little sitting areas. We have the pond, and we have. Going to just scroll up a little bit. Darius talked about that area, and what I guess my point is, I think nature in itself is an amenity, and I think they're here again on my soapbox. But I actually think that we have to start thinking of nature and biodiversity as an amenity. And as everyone knows, in this last year, there's so much research about mental health and proximity to nature. And so I think, especially where we're running out of space, where we just have really dense buildings and parking lots, I think we need to plant every last. And yes, we have to provide places for people to walk and sit, but I think I would really want to defend this plan and say, no, I don't want to pave any more areas. I think the planting space is the precious part, and I think that is an amenity in itself. So I would really push that the planting and the way it's planted to be the amenity. And I've shown, so in terms of the lighting, I've shown little bollards around the entrance, so and they can be extended to the other amenity areas if needed. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
So, Victoria also did some nice writing about the project. I thought it's shame it's not putting in here. I have it there when we passed the document. I'm not sure if design panel received the one or not, but it will be part of this document. And she did a very good job on this.
Yeah, as you know, as part of the deed, so riparian area restoration has to be part of the development permit, so that's what that submission is.
So the next is Harold Scott. Here is your servicing drawing. If you need anything, I have all your report here, so let me know if you need anything.
No, thanks. Just that site plan should be good. Okay, so yeah, I think I'll just sort of quickly run through sort of the access and site servicing elements. So I think Jerry, you just kind of touched on this earlier in his presentation. There's already an existing access kind of right up at the end of the Songbird cul-de-sac there, which kind of goes down to the sort of an informal path down that panhandle. So the access will be obviously using that existing access and then paving a driveway that goes down sort of that narrow piece beside the wetland into the on-site parking. And then there's also, as part of this, there'll be a bike path, which may end up being on the mall property, as again, Dariush mentioned earlier. Water servicing will come from, there's a water main stub already to that access on Songbird Place. So that'll come down again, sort of underneath the panhandle and then service into the building where the meter will be. Sanitary sewer will be, there's actually a sanitary sewer main that runs through a right-of-way. It's sort of along that, sort of lost my bearing here, is that the west side, I believe, of the property. That runs down from Songbird down to towards Rutherford. So there's already a service there that we can connect into. There's also a storm service, or a storm sewer that runs through there with an existing service. The stormwater management on site, I don't think Victoria touched on this a little bit, but there will be a small rain garden down at the bottom of the site there. That's the low end of the site. With an overflow to that storm sewer. So that'll take in basically as much water as we can, sort of from probably the top of the parkade surface, the parking area. But I think what we're really trying to do, sort of in tandem with the restoration that Victoria is looking at in the wetland area, is using those areas to retain stormwater. And then, sort of between the rain garden and that restored area in those soils, is trying to sort of retain as much water in the soils as possible before it leaves the site and goes into the storm sewer on Rutherford. There is an overflow already that sort of leads towards Rutherford. I'm not sure if that's, you see it's kind of small there, but from the wetland area, there's an overflow that also goes to Rutherford, and then that all heads down towards Long Lake. I think that's about covers it.
Thank you, Scott. So I guess we are complete our presentation. So is there any questions for us?
Great, thank you. Could you stop sharing your screen, please? There we go. Now I can see everybody. Okay, thanks for the presentation. Tyler's here. Hello, Tyler. I'm going to ask panel members if anyone has any questions for staff to begin. Seeing none, I will open it up for comments and questions to the applicant. Tyler, sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot. Put you on first. I don't know, did you see the whole presentation or just?
No, just about, yeah. Just thanks for the presentation. I don't really have any questions or comments, so just curious to see what the panel members have to say. So thanks.
Okay, thanks. Kate?
Okay, there we go. Thank you both for, three of you for that presentation, or I guess there's four as your team. Anyway, thank you for the presentation. I'll just focus on the landscape for now and then see what some of the architects have to say. I don't have any specific comments about the building. I think it's wonderful, Victoria, to highlight, to focus on the wetland and use that to inform your design for your whole site. And of course, in my opinion as well, it is an amenity that we need to embrace in our development, bringing in that diversity of trees and plant materials to maintain that same condition like wetland. I think that's great, and I love that the site is edged with robust layers of trees. My only spot that I wanted to comment about, and I know why it is this way, but I know there is room to add some plant elevation. It's the entry courtyard, and I know that it is over parking, and you are constrained by how you then put vegetation on top of that. But given the building and the skills of building, it would be lovely to have a little bit of height in the landscape in that zone, and I appreciate that you have it all around, but I was just thinking as I walked into that, if I walked into the building, I would love to feel a little bit of something around me instead of just the building, and so I'm not sure if I'm sure you've gone through the different ideas about that, but that would be my main comment, is that I'd love to see something just a little bit more in that entry. So, shall I respond? Sure, go ahead. Yeah, and a lot, obviously I agree with you because of the height, and it's to do, as you know, with the weight of soil on the building. I think maybe one of the things we could look at is looking at the structure underneath, and if there was any way we could figure out a way to put trees, if there were columns underneath that could bear the weight of additional soil. So that would be a way we could look at that to get a little bit of height. So you just have to be careful. That's the constraint, as you know. And I'm loath to put any kind of actual built structures, because I know that would be another way to get height, but I'm not sure it's really. I don't know, I guess we can look at that, but I just feel it's cluttering it a little bit. And I mean, I was thinking of just growing really skookum grasses, some of those miscanthus, as you know, pretty full. So, that's seasonal, right? Like there's a part of the year they wouldn't be there, but
maybe only, it would be better if it was trees versus structure, I agree. Or maybe it's just near the entry and then that helps with the marking the entry of the building too or something, you know. But that's my only comment is just that it's unfortunate that's the zone where you can't have trees because I think the trees would really benefit the building there. Because it's very sunny in the afternoon and
If it is possible, I would like to add that there will be some opportunity, as Victoria mentioned, if you have a column right behind it and build it almost like longer box type of thing. We consider 1 foot of the soil. We can increase it to 2, maybe 30 inches of the soil, and maybe small tree, 1 or 2, some trees, but obviously we cannot have 5 to 6 feet of the soil there for the mature tree. So there will be some opportunities. We can look at those and see if we can look on it as
and
a couple of trees.
I recognize the constraints, and I think you're adding so much more that if you can't, you're restoring the wetland, you're adding this really robust edge, and I think that's great and beneficial to the project. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Kate. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Very, very nice job. I like pretty much everything about this project. I think you've drawn very well from the other building on Songbird, taking ideas from. I believe Darius, she did that one as well. And I like how you change the roof lines related to those. How the other project used butterfly roofs and the way you incorporated a little bit more contemporary look to it, I think works very well. I like how you cited the buildings. I like forming character. I like the landscape concept. Most of my comments and concerns are very minimal. Darius, you mentioned that there's going to be upgrades to Uplands Drive. What is that going to entail?
If it's possible, I share the screen and can go back to the side. Basically, the intersection of here is the turn left, I believe, and turn right. There is a city finding here in the issue. We are widening here and making the easier turn left, right there. And there is some upgrading here. Maybe Scott can talk about that more on details. and also that these are the part of the community contribution at the rezoning, the activity one, and it's part of the project.
Okay. Is there going to be alongside the bike lane, is there going to be a sidewalk put in as well?
Maybe
If there is-
can help me down. Sorry.
Sorry, you mean a sidewalk coming down the panhandle portion of the driveway? Or you talking further?
No, on the access
Okay.
road that goes to the mall on the west side.
Oh, here.
This one down here?
Yeah, 'cause you're going to put a bike lane in, but there's no sidewalk there now. Are you going to put a sidewalk in?
I believe there is a sidewalk there now. I think that photo might have, I think, yeah, I believe there is a sidewalk there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that might just be an older photo.
Yeah, yeah, it's on Google Map. Yeah, it's correct. There is a sidewalk there.
Okay, because there is a sidewalk. Really? I actually thought there wasn't one there. I thought it was just a road going up.
There's no sidewalk there.
There's no sidewalk. So if Victoria wants to put an access through to there, obviously you would need to put a sidewalk in, wouldn't you? That road for the most part is
Any
very long.
comments, Scott?
Trying to dig through my photos here. I've got some, I was there not that long ago. Got some.
It looks like there's a sidewalk.
Do you like Scott to share the screen with the design done for there and show what is it proposed?
Kevin, the part of the rezoning detailed what was required for there, and I believe there is sidewalk and bike path design, which hopefully Scott can confirm.
Yeah, I've driven up that road quite often, and I'm pretty sure there isn't a sidewalk, but the road is very unique in that when you come off of Rutherford Road and you turn right, the road is very wide, and then as you get to the top, it narrows out quite a bit. So obviously there's a lot of opportunity to get what you're wanting, but obviously having a sidewalk there, especially on the closest to your project, so that when Victoria has that walkway coming through, that it can link up to that would be very desirable, I would think.
I've got an updated aerial photo here. There's a sidewalk already there.
Do you want to share?
Kate's got a look.
Charles.
Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the 2020 aerial photo. So there's this, I think it's 1.5 meter wide sidewalk coming all the way up to the kind of this intersection at the top of the hill of the mall, and there's crosswalks to get across to the mall sidewalk.
Okay.
So yeah, I think down, so load again. I believe this was one of the existing, there's some sort of informal paths sort of cutting across down to the existing sidewalk from the property.
Yeah, that's where the grade works there at the moment. Yeah, and either side there's more of a berm.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Along that west property line, there's two little pieces of land that I guess belong to the mall. I believe, Victoria, you said there's existing trees on there that will be maintained, is that correct? That area?
Yeah, I know, sorry. Yeah, some of those are on our property and some are on the mall, and at the top, towards the north, those are all on the mall property. No, a bit further down. Those are all on the top of that. They're all on units, I'm pretty sure. So we wouldn't touch those, and then the ones at the bottom we've got some on us and then some on the other. But the idea is that we would, and one of the reasons that we want to put we don't want to disturb those trees, so that's another part of the rationale for putting the bike lane on that existing piece of asphalt.
Okay, and those areas will be continued to be maintained by the mall, is that right? You're not...
That's my... I would think so. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no... You're not providing a fence along that west property line? They're just going to be left like a berm?
It's just trees, just put all trees back,
Okay, and... aside from that, I like everything. The only thing I would just jump on Kate's comment about the entry. Obviously, it would be great to see trees on either side of that entrance going into that circular driveway, but I think anything that you can do to frame it a little bit, using that area where it pinches there, to frame the entranceway into there, and it would highlight the entry too, whether it is through taller grasses or something, even something a little bit more prominent. Public art, there might be ways that you can use those areas to highlight the entry. So aside from that, I really like the project, and it's nice to see something finally done in this corner. So thank you very much.
Can I just say some? Am I on mute? Oh, can I just say something about that? Like I too would love to see something prominent. I guess it's that trade-off, right? Because we've got underground parking, so we have less parking. So it's kind of that has to be added into the equation a little bit of where the parking is the reason we don't have enough soil to do the tree. But if we had parking on the surface, it would be less desirable. Just saying that's the trade-off, right?
Just one last comment. I know, Dariush, in your presentation, you commented on the garbage moving it underground. Unfortunately, your audio, at least on my end, kind of was fuzzy there. So is it your intent to try to get the garbage moved underground?
That was the staff recommendation, and I believe that's a very, very good point. In the big cities like Vancouver, you see all these things underground. So I think it's a good suggestion. But what we have to do, we have to check with the local pickup truck garbage collectors and see if that is what they can offer to us. What they do, basically, they send a smaller truck. They can go underground and bring it more outside, and they will pick it up outside. So we have to double check, and if possible, I do like to do that.
Yeah, I would hope you would. I think that's a wonderful idea to have it underground so that tenants don't have to walk outside when the weather's bad and just go right down to the basement. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. Marie?
Great, hello, and thank you for a wonderful presentation. I think it's a great design that you complement the other building, and obviously I think it's the same architect, so I can understand that happening. But it works well in that site. It looks like a rather complicated and challenging site, so I think your design fits that well. I also really like the use of your color palette and the way you've used that to break up the facade. And I have to agree with you on the roof treatment. Those kind of slanted butterfly roofs aren't my favorite, but I watched that the other developments go up, and driving down Rutherford, I agree with you. It creates a different appearance as you come down the hill. Instead of looking at a flat top of a roof, you're seeing these different elements. You're not really quite sure what they are, and I think that really makes a big difference. So I think it's a very clever way to handle that situation. I think the only thing in terms of the design of the staff noted about your railings and stuff on that balcony. And what I find is that the white is very stark, and it's really kind of maybe making a little more busyness on your facade than you might want, because it's also pulling out the window frames are showing up and the balcony rails are showing up. And I'm just wondering if, I know the staff mentioned something about using glass on your railings, that maybe that's an expensive alternative. I'm just wondering if you even just toned down the white railings and matched it to the gray of the building, the gray you use there, and just tone down the balcony rails a bit, and then they won't be highlighted as much. So other than that, I think the building's it's a great design and very lovely in that sense. I did have a couple of questions for you. I was wondering about that amenity space that's sort of on that back corner near Rutherford, and it was a little unclear from your illustrations how close that was going to be to the road. Now, you say there's a fair amount of trees and so on. I'm just wondering if you're going to provide any screening around that area, because it looks like there's a potential for a little bit of a patio area for people to gather outside of the amenity room, kind of extend out to it.
If you show mine has a little pink bit. My drawing has a little pink semicircle, and the idea is to put crush or something like that, gravel, and I don't want to put anything hard. I don't want to put concrete because those arbutus, it says existing arbutus, there's a little grove there with the ones with the little circles in, and so I would rather not put anything impermeable there to make sure the water gets into them. But yeah, it's always tricky going in underneath. I take your point, definitely, and I'll look at that when I get to the detailed design, figure out what plants would work to screen that. That's a good point.
I've been wondering just about a permanent, like some sort of structured screen that would go up, which might also help to dampen any traffic noise. I'm just thinking if the people in the building are having a party or something, or social event in that amenity room and want to extend outside, can you make that a little more sort of socially friendly without having the road noise and so on, distraction from the highway for the road interfering there?
There is some in here, as you see, we do have a cover area go around, and we extend this one. Actually, we do have some structure extending out. That's the part of amenity we like to see there. I can bring
that's just over the roof, though, that you're talking about.
No, that's here. That's what we have. It's not showing in the landscape drawing. We do have a covered around the building and a little bit extension out. But obviously, what Victoria showed is going to be more space there. But we do have a little bit of the cover there.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about a vertical screen that would just serve as a kind of wall, like a fence, not a full fence, but something that might shield it from the road, and that would also help maybe block some of the sound from the road as well, just making that outdoor space just a little nicer for socializing it.
I think one of the things is that those trees go almost to the property line. So any screen, I think, and I personally would see the trees as part of that space. So then we run into the bylaws, and then if it's a screen, then it's 4 foot, right? Because it's the bylaw height. So I think maybe the thing to do is just to plant really, really densely along that planting plan.
Obviously, the building code places here. So my other question is, this building's located in a wonderful spot, close to stores, close to transit, perfect for people who don't have a car, but also for people who are reliant on mobility issues, reliant on wheelchairs and so on. I'm just wondering if you're including any spaces, any suites in there that are fully accessible at all in your plans?
We are, I think, Darius, didn't we talk about creating at least a couple of suites?
Yeah, the main floor, the units they are big enough, we can make a couple of the one bedrooms at the main floor accessible.
Okay, well, that would be nice.
Universal or adaptable. You know,
Yeah,
adaptable. Majority of them they are actually adaptable, but they do need a little bit more, you know, backing and other stuff. But we can have a couple of them actually make it as accessible.
Okay, that would be great. And also then, in keeping with that, is thinking about the sidewalks and that there is clear paths that lead to sidewalks, that there's lots of good sidewalks and very, you know, sort of accessible approaches to, say, the mall or down the hill, down Rutherford and so on. So,
If you were using a motorized scooter, you could actually make it very comfortably from this site across Rutherford Road, past the Memory Complex Center, and right down to Long Lake.
great, yeah.
So, yeah, we're trying to keep that in mind throughout the whole project.
That'd be great. Okay.
Also got another patio and amenity space at the entry by McDonald's. That will be a fitness center with an outdoor patio gathering space as well.
Okay.
Here. I just wanted to add what we did in the Cross the Pond project. I'm going to show the one picture here. You see that this injury like a gateway, even though they are, we did provided that access, actually it's around, I think around 20 steps you have to go down to go to the parking. But we recognize people, they will connect to the site and we provide that type of the gate. This is a little bit just the means of the privacy, the private property. I think that will be helpful if we provide that one in there and maybe one there and another one in here. Instead of putting the, you know, the fence and creating the really barrier for means of the privacy, maybe that type of the gate created that meaning and I can give you the nicer connection to the ground.
Yeah, sure. Just marking the entrance in and out of the property. So.
That's great. One more thing about the training you did ask. We did build another project with the same developer at Stockman Way. I believe the consensus is to use the frosted glass railing, and I'm pretty sure they're going to do that. They are doing a very wonderful job, so I'm pretty sure that there will be lots of improvement compared to what you see here. So, yeah, frosted glass maybe replaced with these white railing.
Yeah, that would be good. Great. Thanks very much.
I think that we will likely soften the white windows and the white balcony railings to something more compatible with the whole wetlands theme.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Marie. All right, go to my list. Tony.
Thank you, Charles. 3 points, just one, just touch on the variances. They're obviously quite minor, and I certainly have no problem with them, if anybody else does. The second is just on general form and character. I agree with Marie's comment. Frank, I think it's a very handsome looking project. It's got a lot of massing interest, color, texture, the frames, the little roof parts and so forth, and I think it hangs together extremely well on all sides, particularly and surprisingly on the ends of the buildings. Usually these are leftovers. The ends of the buildings are, I think, exceptionally well done, and I compliment the design on that part. Where I have some difficulty with, and it was raised by staff, is the main entrance. In proportion to the size of this building, it really is quite a almost minuscule little sort of bump there, and I would think that it would be much better proportion, more comfortable, more welcoming if it had a little more heft to it. I don't know how you want to do that. There's any number of ways. Probably the simple, cheap way would be to make solid balconies for the second floor suites immediately next to it, so you have a bit of a heavy-looking canopy, kind of a little more of a frame to it, something along that line. I mean, there's any number of things I'm sure you could come up with, but I definitely feel that's the only weak spot in this entire project. So anything you could do to improve on that, I think would be great. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, and I totally agree with you with the entrance can have more attention. What we can do, we can actually create a little maybe two-story type of the high entrance. This back is again the lobby is not really space, living space, and these are the main floor, office, and another mailbox area. Yeah, we can change the color, we can make it a little bit bulkier, two-story high type of the entrance, make it a little bit strong. And you see the real estate in the corner is very limited, so I totally agree with you, and I plan to make it better.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Sorry, I'm writing as I'm talking. Okay, thanks for the presentation. I actually don't have anything to add, which is great. Thanks, Marie, for picking up on the balcony railing point. That was one of my points, too. And I do, with my office in Dublin Way, I see the building that was done there every day. Well, not every day, every time I'm in the Nanaimo. So I know that I think there was a few things done differently on that building that really helped it out. So I can see that happening here. With that, I'm going to ask it, does anybody else on the panel have any comments or questions about the variances? And if not, I will propose a motion that includes support for the setback variance and the height variance that are in there. We won't say anything about parking. And I have written down 3 recommendations, so correct me if I'm wrong, please. First recommendation, consider opportunities for taller plantings in the main courtyard to highlight and frame the entrance, or to help highlight and frame the entrance. Second recommendation, consider using darker color railings for the balconies. That could be darker colored railings and or frosted glass railings. And third recommendation, consider ways to enhance and increase the prominence of the main entrance elevation relative to the whole building. Is there anything, Kevin? I think you're muted.
Sorry.
Yep.
Also, what about moving the garbage underground into the underground parking with it? That one still should be put in there.
Yeah, we can put that. There was a good discussion about it. Sounds like they're looking at opportunities, but we can add that as a recommendation.
And the only other one was Marie's comment about adding accessible units, whether or not that needs to be a recommendation.
I think they were looking at that, so I don't know that it needs to be a recommendation per se. How other people
Any other comment on that one? Seeing none. Okay, I'm going to add, consider moving the garbage enclosure to the underground parking. That might actually give them an opportunity to increase the parking stall size, but anyway, we'll go there. Okay, so if we had a recommendation, or a motion with those 4 recommendations in support for the variances, is there someone who would put that forward? Kevin?
Sure, I will.
Oh, Marie?
Go ahead, Marie.
Sure, I'll put it forward.
Okay, so 4 recommendations and support for the variances. And seconder Tony, thank you. Any further discussion, comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And none opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, we have, on our agenda, we have other business. And I believe our other business is a discussion around, oh, Kate? Oh, no.
I was waving goodbye.
Oh, you're leaving?
No, to the presenters. I was saying goodbye to the presenters. Are we leaving? Is that the idea?
Yeah, they're kicking us off. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, so our other business is around the memo or letter, document that we received last week, which followed from our conversation a couple of weeks before that about conflict of interest and all that stuff. Sky Snellgrove is here virtually. So I'm not sure, we don't really have a format for this. I'm not sure I thought maybe the best thing to do would be to ask panel members if anyone had any questions specifically about the document that we were given. And then if not about that, then are there any related questions that we might be able to bounce around?
Sorry.
Oh.
Just
Go ahead.
my apologies for interrupting. Just to let you know, Sky Snellgrove has prepared a brief presentation to maybe kick off that discussion and just kind of go over the material if that helps.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just a verbal presentation. I don't have any slides, but Lania had asked me to come here to talk about a conflict of interest and what your responsibilities are as panel members. So I'm just going to go over that and talk about the procedures to follow if you are in a conflict. So there are 2 main city documents which speak to conflict of interest. So you did note that you received one of them, and then another one is the committee operating guidelines. So the other overarching piece of legislation regarding conflict of interest is the community charter. And so the conflict of interest provisions are in section 100 if you're interested in reading further. But basically, as a committee member, each of you have the responsibility and duty to act in the best interest of the city of Nanaimo. So it's always up to you to decide if you're in a conflict. So a conflict of interest can arise when you're in a situation that can undermine your impartiality towards the topic or an agenda item. So this could be a pecuniary interest or something else. So from our committee operating guidelines, this is a quote. A member who is in a situation that has the potential to undermine his or her impartiality because of a possible clash between the public interest and his or herself professional or business interest is in a conflict of interest. So in other words, if you're predisposed to vote on something a certain way because of your relationship with the topic, you could be in a conflict. So this could be through your personal relationships, your family relationships, your professional or business interests. And if you're to benefit personally or professionally, you could be in a conflict of interest. So some examples, and it's not limited to these, but you work for a company that is presenting a project to the panel and it needs the panel's approval. Or you will receive directly or indirectly a monetary, personal, or professional gain from a project being approved by the panel.
Another one is you could face harm from the project being denied, or there could be a personal impact on you, or if a family member could face any of those things because of a project being approved or denied. So what to do if you think you may be in a conflict, well, is to first review all of the agenda material in advance to see if you are in a conflict with any of the items. Before the chair introduces the item, when you're at the meeting, you would declare your conflict of interest. So the legislation states that you have to say you're in a conflict and the general reasons why. So you simply say, I'm in a conflict of interest because, and state the reason. And now because we're meeting over Zoom, the recording secretary would put you in the waiting room for Zoom. So that would be you leaving the meeting because you can't participate. And if you were meeting in person, then you'd actually physically leave the room. So you aren't able to participate in any way with the item. So that means in discussions, presentations, or for the vote. You can't influence the vote in any way. So then once the item is finished, the recording secretary would bring you back into the Zoom meeting from the waiting room, or you'd enter the meeting room. And one other thing is that you can't participate in that item if it ever comes back again because you've declared a conflict, unless you get a legal opinion that says you're not in a conflict. So there are a few other scenarios. So one of them was if the chair was in a conflict of interest, then you would the chair would have to declare that conflict. And then you would have to choose someone to be your acting chair while the chair is out of the room or in the Zoom meeting room. So you do that by motion, and then they would chair that item, and when you're moving on to the next item, the chair could come back in the room. One other thing that was addressed that I wanted to go over as well is that you're all on the panel because you are subject matter experts. So you need to think about if your appointment to the panel related to your work would cause you to be in a conflict so often on projects that you would be of little value to the panel because you'd have to declare for each item kind of thing. Another situation is about quorum. So that means that you have to have half plus one of the entire membership present and able to conduct a meeting. So if you lose quorum because someone's declaring a conflict of interest, you wouldn't be able to deal with that meeting that evening. You'd have to put it off to another meeting when you have more members present so you can maintain quorum at all times. So some of the consequences of not declaring a conflict is that the item could be appealed. Depending on the seriousness of the item, it could go to court. The member's integrity could be called into question. And again, depending on the seriousness, council could choose to remove you from the panel. So that's the conflict of interest provisions, kind of in a nutshell, and a quick rundown. So does anyone have any questions? Yes.
I think there will be many, and they might all be the same. I'm not sure. So, speaking for, well, certainly for the architects on the panel and probably the landscape architect, if I read if I understand what you're saying correctly, we have to remove ourselves. So it's our project. This happens all the time. It's our project, and so we step away. But sometimes we thought we would be okay to come back, especially for someone like Kate, who's a sole practitioner. It's very difficult to disappear and still have the project represented properly.
Right.
Does that mean that Kate has to have someone else, like the architect or the owner or somebody, do the landscape presentation?
So preferably, it would be someone else, and then she would declare the conflict for that entire item. It's part of the project. But what you can do is she could be the first presenter, present the information, stay for questions, and then leave immediately after. So not participate in the vote or the discussion or the presentation from staff, that kind of thing. Because in some situations, it's not possible to have someone else present for you. Does that clarify that a bit?
Yeah, that helps.
May I make a comment?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we were doing in a sense, right? That we would leave and come on as a presenter and then act as only a presenter and not a panel member for our project.
Right. So I think the challenge is that you can't actually remove yourself from the panel because you're always considered a panel member. Because you
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
But it is tricky because there are a lot of landscape architects in Nanaimo, so I imagine even for any landscape architect who will be on this panel who is in Nanaimo is going to have this problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I'd recommend you make your presentation and then answer any questions and then declare your conflict and leave for the remainder of the discussion on that item. That's probably the smoothest way to do it.
That's easy. Thank you.
Any other questions? Doesn't sound like it?
Doesn't look like it, no. I think that was kind of the crux of our conundrum was how do you present a project if you can't present a project? So that's good to know. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me at your design panel meeting. I hadn't actually watched one of these before, so it was really interesting, but I've read lots of the minutes, so thank you for that.
All right, thanks for sitting through the whole meeting.
Thank you, Sky.
Okay, any other business for anyone? Kate?
I just have a question. I wonder if we can include that, or if that can be written or something, that sort of specific procedure that we should take. Does that make sense to do that, or?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I didn't know that was an option, so that's good to know.
Like in our, whatever our
handbook.
Yeah, our handbook.
Yeah. Okay. Tony?
Just a quick question because it came up in the application this evening. Is Nanaimo going to move forward to some kind of citywide adaptable housing requirements for multifamily projects like other municipalities have? Do we know? It's a question for staff, obviously.
It's encouraged in the affordable housing strategy. So that is something that is encouraged, and at the time of a rezoning, we have the ability to secure it. And we do encourage that, bring that up at rezonings. But if the property already has zoning and it's a development permit, we don't have anything in place to require a certain percentage to be adaptable. We do have attached to the zoning bylaw, it's called Schedule D. And so what's in that Schedule D, you can get additional density on the property if you achieve certain things. And so some examples are electric vehicle charging stations, higher levels within the step code, and adaptable units. Is there, or is it being added?
Yes,
it's there already.
Yeah, there is a certain percentage.
So that is, I guess, one place where, if you want additional density in your property, you can add adaptable units, and that's one of the things you can choose from that Schedule D list. So that's where we're at right now at City of Nanaimo.
Thank you.
It sounds like a good idea, Tony. I think just sort of the numbers of people who come here to retire, and I think even people who do have mobility issues are attracted to the climate, the location, and so on. So I think it might be something that the council or the city wants to look at and require a little more, or whatever. Maybe a little research into it in terms of what the demand looks like, from associations that are dealing with this sort of thing too. Like, how difficult is it for somebody with these issues with buying housing in the city? I'm not really sure. So it might also be a question that the city needs to look at.
Okay.
I have one more question for the staff. If you're getting any closer to finding our other panel member, because aren't we short one? Right.
Yes, through the chair, we are still in the process of filling that vacancy, and so I know that we, for example, had a call out to on the Arbitrary IBC, and Charles has been extended to cover us at that. We will follow up for another update, but I don't believe we've heard back since our last request, so we'll follow up again. We are still pursuing that. If you know of interest, please pass them our way, but we will follow up again.
I'm trying to think of it, because I'm just thinking we're so few that when, there's a bunch of projects that are eventually going to come through where I have a conflict of interest, and I would hate for our numbers to, anyway.
Kate, you're talking about Steve's replacement, correct?
Yeah. So that's just a member at large.
Yeah, so through the chair, I will follow up on that as well. Yeah.
Okay. And sorry, I know I asked before, but if I know someone, who do they contact, or how do they?
I believe that's through Ledge Services.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Any other business? No? Shaking of heads? Okay, I move that the meeting be officially adjourned. Nice to see you all again.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.